guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
All right, it's a scoop session Tuesday here on Mackie and Judd. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we bring our guy in, Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department, and a man that I'm hoping to take down in fantasy football once again with our draft coming up. Doogie, let's start here. So, Diana Rossini is the latest national NFL insider to come out and float something Justin Jefferson related. I'll summarize by saying she basically said Justin Jefferson and the Vikings would both like to reach a long-term record-breaking contract. The deal is not done. There's still time before the regular season. It's kind of a non-update update. This is like the second or third one of these that we've seen. But as of right now, we're almost to September, and a deal is not done yet. So is there anything here at all whatsoever? Do you think a deal gets done before week 1?
Well, I think it's possible, Phil. It takes both sides to be motivated enough to get to the finish line. I will reiterate, in an ideal world, the Vikings right now, here on Tuesday, August 29th, would already have Justin Jefferson signed to a contract extension and TJ Hockenson. Judd, you have alluded to this for many months. You have been spot on. It is a very complicated negotiation. There's also the Nick Bosa factor with the Niners set to make Bosa the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Well, which deal comes first? Is it the Bosa deal or the Jefferson deal? Because Jefferson wants to be the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. The Vikings understand that they greatly need to take care of Justin Jefferson. That's not the issue. The issue is, okay, the total guarantee. How high does the number need to go? You know, some injury protection in there too. The language can get goofy. But I'm just telling you, like Rob Brzezinski at this point, Rob Brzezinski at this point would love to have the Jefferson extension done, finished. But these talks have been ongoing on and off for many months. So is it possible, Phil, it's done by September 9th, heading into the Sunday, September 10th opener? I suppose. But it has taken this long. And at this point on Tuesday morning, August 29th, there's just no sense like it's on the football analogy or football cliche on the 1 yard line or 2 yard line.
Doogie, what a professional broadcaster Doogie is here. Do we need to put Judd in microphone timeout here? Or
yeah, I think so.
Keep going forward. Okay.
I think so.
Okay. We're going to put Judd
Look at him. He's baffled. He's like, what is going on?
Oh, my gosh. We have a new microphone on the way for Judd here, but we're still grinding through it. So, yeah, and I think, I mean, you know, by the time people listen to this, some of the roster stuff is going to play out. So we can kind of save the roster discussion for when it's actually out there. But it is interesting to this point. You know, Kwesi has been the general manager now for a year and a half, and we haven't seen a contract extension yet, unless I'm missing something. I mean, Hockenson's still sitting out there. How much of this? How sort of frozen do you think they might be by all of these decisions coming through the pipeline at the same time? You don't know who your quarterback's going to be because Cousins isn't under contract. You don't know who your edge rushers are going to be because Davenport and Daniil Hunt, like basically all these important positions and players. Do you think we're just going to see, you know, multiple contracts at some point, or do you think they're really trying to keep the runway clear for 2024? Where do you think they're at with this, Doogie?
Well, I mean, they are going to take care of Jefferson, right? There's no freezing in Egan in regards to the best wide receiver in the game. They are going to take care of the best wide receiver in the game. I think the back and forth we can have in that regard, Phil, is TJ Hockenson, that he is chasing some pretty good money, that it makes logical sense in so many ways just to play this thing out and slap the franchise tag on him. That franchise tag for a tight end will be in the vicinity of $12 to $12.5 million, maybe 13, but that is still reasonable for the 2024 season. Now, even though this regime, Rob Brzezinski and others that have been there for a long time, don't necessarily like to use the franchise tag, I think this is one of those cases where if TJ is not willing to play ball with what the Vikings are willing to do, that Cole Kmet contract extension with the Bears, threw some things for a loop, right? So if he's chasing that $40 to $42 million in guarantees, that the Vikings aren't going to quite approach that number. Can you meet somewhere a little above the 32 that Kmet got, right? But if TJ is truly going to hold strong his representation, Neil Cornrich, on wanting close to a record-breaking tight end deal, well, that's where it could get sticky. But yes, I get it. The Vikings have so many decisions to make. They have so many free agents after this year. I get it that we fixate on Cousins, on Hunter, but you think about guys like DJ Wanham, Josh Metellus, Ezra Cleveland, KJ Osborne. So many decisions will be made after this year. But in terms of Jefferson, Phil, it's a no-brainer. It's just a matter of finding that sweet spot on the guarantees. But the Vikings realize they need to pay him a boatload of money.
Dukes, does one of these things have to happen before the other, i.e. the Jefferson and Hockenson contract extension? Does one become a lot easier if the first one gets done first, or does it really not matter? They want to just get both these guys locked up before week 1 starts.
Yeah, independent, Declan. Yeah, I mean, separate, right? I mean, they could happen within 48 hours of each other, I suppose, right? I'm not ruling that out, but I would say those two are independent of each other. But just know this, talks are ongoing. They have been ongoing for a while, off and on. They will continue. I imagine, who knows, if it's not done by September 9th, maybe even into the regular season, even though we don't see that very often. The regular season is the cutoff point for contract negotiations. I wouldn't be shocked if things, dip into the regular season if need be. But it's also possible as we approach September 9th into September 10th, the morning of September 10th, or, that night of September 9th, that one or both of these extensions are done.
I get it from the Vikings side too. Like first of all, I guess if I trade a second round pick for Hockenson and he plays really well like he did, I know that him and the agent are probably going to want the biggest tight end contract. So on one hand, I don't understand if there's like a level of shock here on the Viking side. Like this is where this was always headed in the negotiation, in my opinion. But I also understand if you're the Vikings, okay, he was here for a half season. He's never put up 1,000 yards. He's not on that top level, the Kelsey sort of, George Kittle level. Maybe he could get there with another season. So if you are the Vikings, it probably makes sense for that reason. And with all the other contract uncertainties you have, play the season, go put up 1,200 yards or whatever it is. Go be basically the number 2 wide receiver on this team, from the tight end spot. And then we can talk about a record-breaking tight end contract. I can see why the Vikings would be hesitant to give him money that he hasn't necessarily earned or deserved on that top level yet. But at what risk? I mean, do you alienate this relationship? I mean, historically, Dukes, the Vikings' previous regime didn't really get to the point of franchise tagging players ever. Some other teams do it on a regular basis. The Vikings have not. So we just haven't really seen much of that, the last 10 or 15 years around here.
Yeah, I mean, who was the last one? Was it Jimmy Kleinsasser or was it Chad Greenway at one point? I mean, we need to go back a decade plus, right? I mean, that's where you're racking your brain. You're like, okay, when was the last time the Vikings used a franchise tag? So it's not something a lot of these folks who have been there for a really long time. I know we think about Kwesi, but under Kwesi, there's a lot of holdovers, people that have been in that front office for many, many years. Traditionally, they just don't use the franchise tag. But yes, the only thing you're risking, Phil, is alienating that relationship. But the Vikings really have most of the power. But if you're TJ, with this injury history, I don't have every injury in front of me. Maybe Declan can look it up. But he's battled 4 or 5 different things since being that top 10 pick with Detroit coming out of Iowa a few years ago. Right? So he's looking at it saying, this is my chance to cash in. Yes, the Vikings gave up all this draft capital. They make this big acquisition. I'm not sure I could have done anything else once I got there. That first game in Washington all I did was produce. I've shown I can be productive in this offense. It's on them to pay me. Why do I want to put my body on the line again? Also knowing what we laid out about the franchise tag, that in TJ's mind and Neil Cornrich's mind, it could be another, 17 games this year, 17 games next year, potentially a playoff game or two, 34 to 36 more games before you truly have a chance to hit a really, really solid payday. Now, I get it. Trust me. If he's making $12.5 to $13 million next year, that's not chump change. The 9 and change he's making this year, whatever the exact number is this year, is not chump change. But I'm sure after he went to tight end U in July in Nashville, led by Kelsey, led by Mark Andrews and others. George Kittle actually is the leader of that tight end university, but Kelsey, Andrews, others have their fingerprints on it. That he's around all those guys. He's seeing all these guys, Kmet, Ingram, right? Even Waller going back to the Raiders contract he signed before being dealt to the Giants. You look at all these contracts, Dallas Goedert, Andrews also, all these guys getting paid, Phil, and he's around these guys in July. They're inevitably talking about these sorts of things, and he's like, whoa, where's my payday? I'm on par with a lot of these guys. I put up good numbers. I want my money.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I understand it from the Vikings standpoint. At this point, I would just say, TJ, what are you going to do? You're not sitting out. Go produce. And yeah, we can revisit dialogue after the year. But deep down, the Vikings know if need be, we have use of the franchise tag. I mean, you look up and down all those free agents I laid out, but the one that makes sense based on the rules, based on everything, right, would be TJ Hockenson for the franchise tag.
Yeah.
There's really nobody else you can lay out the case for, right? I get it. Cousins and Hunter are free agents, but the guy you would put the franchise tag on would be TJ Hockenson.
And Cousins,
right? I mean, you can't even use the franchise tag on Cousins.
You could.
The language in Hunter. Well, it would be what? 50-something million or 45 million, 50.
I think it'd be I think it'd be like 60 million or so. It's some of
or
the third franchise tag year is huge.
Franchise tag, yeah. Mm-hmm. You're not putting it on Cousins. And I forget, top of my head, the reworked language in Hunter's contract. But you can't use the franchise tag on Hunter. Is that
I believe they negotiated that.
Given? Yeah. So I'm just saying, you're not using the franchise tag on those other guys. Trust me, I love my guy Metellus. I love some of these guys. KJ Osborne, in all likelihood, is going to hit a nice payday elsewhere. That's why you bring in Jordan Addison. You're preparing for Osborne leaving in March. Hockenson is the guy you would use the franchise tag on.
Dude, I saw poor Chris Reed got renegotiated again. I mean, this guy, I think this for the second time this year, they've came to him and say, hey, we're going to rework I know it's very minimal chump change. It's not like they're moving around millions and millions and millions of dollars. But for the second time, they've kind of restructured his deal after him being kind of a non-factor for the most part of training camp.
Yeah, they still trust him. Yeah, I mean, non-football injury, right? I mean, he hasn't been on the field yet. But there still is a trust factor, Declan. So he is going to be in that locker room. Now, what it looks like to start the year, what list is he on? But I'm just saying, like, if need be, come October, November, December, if he needs to play some snaps with some position flexibility, they trust him. So he is going to be here. But yes, that was officially filed last week with the Players Association, yet another reworking. So the original reworking was done in March. And now he takes a little bit of a base salary pay cut again. And, yeah, that got done last week. But Chris Reed is going to be here.
Is it fair to say that the Vikings decided Jaren Hall and a fourth-round pick are more valuable to them than Trey Lance?
Yeah, they were not willing. I'm glad you brought this up, Phil. There was genuine interest in Trey Lance going back to pre-draft. My understanding is they were not willing to touch giving up a fourth-round pick. Now, the question is, would they have gone as high as a 5, or were they married more to the idea of a 6 or a 7 or a conditional 7th that could have turned into a 6th, something like that? But my understanding is they were not willing to touch giving up a 4. So, hey, kudos to Jerry Jones, those folks in Dallas. Take a swing on a guy that, has a high ceiling if he can even approach anything close to that ceiling. But these guys, even though they like the player, were not willing to go that high.
Yeah, it is real. And by the way, we can let's see if we can sneak Judd back in here. Get Judd out of microphone timeout. Let's try our luck. Hello, Judd.
Can you hear me? Am I really loud?
No, I think we're
better.
I think we're okay. Okay. Can you hear us, Judd? Can you hear us?
I can
Hello,
hear you.
Judd.
You're very low, but I'm keeping this down. So since my microphone evidently reset everything last night.
So, all right, I'll ask this question. They seem to
Love you,
like
Judd.
Jaren Hall quite a bit, right? I mean, he looks to have progressed in the 3 preseason games. When you start him with the actual backups, those first 2 drives, he looks good. Kevin O'Connell's had some great things to say. I'm sure Kevin O'Connell was very influential in drafting Jaren Hall. So it is, if you would have said this a year ago, hey, you have a chance at Trey Lance for like a 4th round pick, I think most teams would have jumped on that. I guess it speaks to 2 things: how far the Trey Lance stock has fallen, and how impressive Jaren Hall must have been behind the scenes for the last 4 months or so.
Yeah, they like Jaren Hall. I mean, Judd, have you heard the same thing, that they are impressed by Jaren Hall? They want Jaren Hall around here just to see this thing out. No guarantees that Jaren Hall is like the starter in 2024, but he made all sorts of progress throughout training camp, throughout the preseason. I would debate that his best performance in the preseason was that last game, that Arizona game. I just know that they have a healthy opinion. They had one pre-draft, and they've seen that opinion come to fruition throughout training camp, throughout the preseason. They want Jaren Hall around here this year.
Dukes, if I may, in joining light here, transition to the Twins. I'd like to ask you a question about the story of the day yesterday, which was pregame, obviously, Byron Buxton working out in center field, which, as you've alluded to, this is not a first. Like, we've talked about this before, but it became a bigger deal. Is the plan there status quo? And also, here's my question to you for some analysis. It feels like we're getting really excited about this, like, oh, Buxton might come back and play. My thing is, this is how he's going to play if he's going to obviously get in the playoffs. But the way that they're going right now, it's not, unless you can get me Buxton back at 100%, it's not as if Byron Buxton needs to save the day. So how should we interpret this? Because it feels like, oh, Byron Buxton might come back in center field. It's going to be like old times. And I guess I just sort of disagree with that. If he can come back and play there and play well, awesome. But if he can't, it's not worth trying to force him into the lineup based on what's going on offensively. And Michael Taylor and Buxton are probably right now about the same player. And Taylor might have a little more pop right now, for all I know.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, Michael A. Taylor is a viable alternative. But here's the plan on Buck. So we alluded to this in this slot last week, Tuesday. I said, hey, Byron is going to start a rehab assignment as soon as late this next week. Well, here we are into this next week. It is trending in that direction that Byron Buxton, before the week is over, will be in the lineup in St. Paul for the Saints. And yes, will play in center field. Maybe not on a daily basis. It may be center field, then DH, then back in center, right? He'll play a few games for the Saints. Then they can make a determination. But that is the idea. The next step is later today, Tuesday, he will hop in the batter's box, live batting practice. Jorge Alcala will throw to him. Of the 2 relievers, Jorge Alcala, Brock Stewart, Jorge Alcala, with a lengthy injury history, by the way, plus when he's been on the mound, not like he's been productive, but there's some intrigue with the arm. Alcala is closer than Stewart to returning. Not that Brock Stewart is out for the year, but Alcala is closer. So the idea is Buxton plus Alex Kirilloff later today at Target Field will hop in the batter's box. If all goes well with Buxton, he continues to work in center field. Heck, I was there Monday pregame. He got work in. Jace Tingler and Watkins were hitting him fly balls in center. He was running the bases. He looked pretty good. I, along with a few others, then chatted with Buxton in the clubhouse. He was subdued. He said, hey, I'll be excited when I actually see my name on the lineup card playing center field. But I'm just telling you, it is trending in that direction that it'll happen before the week is over at CHS Field. Then we'll go from there, Judd. But I hear you. Like, as we think about Tuesday, October 3rd, right? Even before another, game separator with Cleveland, like the Twins, they've been winning this division for many weeks. Cleveland is 7-8 games below 500. Give me a break. All these X's/tweets alluding to the Twins are now this many games up. Cleveland is this many games back. I'm sorry. I can't take Cleveland seriously as they're 7-8 games below 500. So it's all been about October 3rd. So as we think about the ideal lineup, Tuesday, October 3rd. Twins against the Rangers, the Blue Jays, whomever the opponent is. Yes, it's Buxton versus Taylor. Who makes more sense? So I want to see how Buxton looks with the Saints. Then when he comes back up, Judd. But I'm just telling you, I think in the Twins' minds that Buxton getting back in center, saying he's feeling really good, them giving him the 7-year, $100 million contract, that in their minds, Buxton is going to be in center field on Tuesday, October 3rd at Target Field.
Super interesting. A couple other things. I have a Twins thing I want to throw at you here, but if you notice, Doogie has lost some weight over the past month or so, thanks to his friends at MN Fat Loss, Doogs.
Yes, Phil. I am the opposite of Justin Jefferson's bank account in the near future. So that will be incredibly fat. Not that it's not a little bit fat right now, but Justin Jefferson, when he inevitably signs the contract extension, that bank account will be incredibly fat. Not that I'm incredibly skinny, but I'm skinnier than I've been in a really long time. Down right around 20 pounds. I've moved on with mnfatloss.com from the maintenance phase to the reduction phase to now the maintenance phase. So I'm reintroducing some foods. I'm actually now learning a lot more about my body, what makes sense for me to consume, not consume. So like dairy, it beats me up pretty good. Gluten beats me up pretty good. So I will be transitioning to pretty much a dairy-free / gluten-free diet. It's all about education, right? And you have great leaders at mnfatloss.com, but they're not overwhelming, but they provide incredible guidance. Began the journey on July 2nd. Incredibly grateful for the opportunity to work with the fine folks at mnfatloss.com. It's been fantastic. Most importantly, I have way more energy than I ever have before. mnfatloss.com's unique weight loss program makes it easy to lose weight, get healthy, and get your energy back naturally, safely, and effectively. Many patients lose 20 to 30 pounds in about a month or two. For your free private weight loss consultation, call 763-312-7600. That's 763-312-7600. Or schedule online at mnfatloss.com. That's mnfatloss.com. Dr. Adam Schatzko, DC. Results may vary.
So last couple minutes here, and we'll empty the scoop bag, but I want you to start with this. The bullpen has some really interesting options as we move toward Tuesday, October 3rd, or whatever the date is, right? They've had a dearth of left-handed options. Well, last night, Cody Funderburk, who's been great in the minor leagues, former 15th round draft pick out of is it Dallas Baptist or something in 2019 or 18? He's a 6'4" lefty, came in, had a great couple innings. Kenta Maeda likely moves to the bullpen, where he's been excellent in his postseason career back with the Dodgers a few years ago. So I'm starting to sort of like the bullpen options as you start to lay this out a month from now.
Yes, and Louis Varland. The chatter continues internally about calling up Louis Varland at some point in September, experimenting with him out of the bullpen. There are multiple Twins folks who really believe his stuff can play really well out of the pen. But then you think about that first round playoff series, that best of 3, October 3rd, October 4th, if necessary, October 5th. Well, how many pitchers do you exactly need, right? You don't need 13 pitchers, right, for a 3-game series. You can reset your roster if you move on. If you win that first round, you can reset your playoff roster for that next series. So how many pitchers do you need? But yeah, that's what September is going to be all about, Phil. Them exploring, figuring out, okay, who makes sense. There still is a chance on Brock Stewart. He threw a bullpen over the weekend. He's scheduled to throw another one here pretty quick. So he's had multiple setbacks, right? It's not at this point that you can absolutely in ink write in Brock Stewart in the bullpen for October 3rd, but he remains a possibility as well. So I'm with you. Heck, even Josh Winder, his last 2 appearances. Plus, I've always thought maybe it's just you look at the guy, you stand next to Josh Winder, he looks like the real deal. He has this aura, this presence about him. I get it. The numbers before these last 2 outings have been pretty subpar but I still am intrigued by Josh Winder. So they have enough intriguing options that, including Kenta Maeda. So if you're thinking about game 1, okay, Pablo Lopez. Game 2, Sonny Gray. Game 3, if necessary, at this point, Joe Ryan. I mean, I guess that's where the conversation picks up. If you play a game 3, winner take all, loser goes home, who starts game 3? Would it be Joe Ryan? Would you go with Kenta Maeda, or is Maeda in the bullpen? But these are all things that they are kicking about at Target Field.
Yeah. All right. Any other final scoop nuggets here before we say goodbye today, Dukes?
Yeah, so Thursday night, Gophers, Nebraska at Huntington Bank Stadium. The sense is that Greg Harbaugh will be the play caller. So would it be Matt Simon or Harbaugh, the two co-offensive coordinators? The sense is it will be Harbaugh. Collaborative effort, right? I think we maybe obsess about who's calling the plays a bit too much, where there's input from multiple folks, but the sense is it will be Greg Harbaugh calling plays for the Gophers on Thursday night. 11 NFL teams as of now, 15 scouts representing those 11 teams will be at Huntington Bank Stadium on Thursday night. Tyler Nubin, Gopher safety, I think he has a chance to absolutely be a day 2 pick. Don't think day 1 at this point, just from the safety position, but he's looking like a 2nd or 3rd round pick. The Gophers have some other interesting NFL prospects as well, but certainly Tyler Nubin at the top of that list.
Yeah. Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department and the Scoop Podcast every Tuesday and Thursday here with inside information about your favorite Minnesota sports teams. Thanks, Doogs.
Okay, boys. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. I'm connecting with Mark Coyle later today, so thank you for the flexibility.
Awesome. Vikings cut day today, so check out Purple Daily for a live stream later on this Tuesday afternoon. It's Minnesota Sports with Mackie and Judd.